Okay, well, hello everyone. It's great to see so many people here in the room today. What I'm really going to be going over is TIBCO Jaspersoft's analytics engine that allows you to power data visualizations, reporting, and also, you're doing a lot with actually being able to control the analytics with the engine. So to give you some idea, Visualize.js, that's TIBCO Jaspersoft has this JavaScript API that allows you to take what you're doing with this backend. So you're connecting to your data sources, whether it may be Cassandra, Hadoop, MongoDB, and then you're very easily able to make that connection. So if you're using D3, you really have a front end, and we can connect to that. But if you're using Jaspersoft, what that's allowing you to do is to actually have an entire engine behind that. So it's really your hub for connecting all your data sources, creating that metadata layer, so you're creating data over your data, and it's able to really, so you don't have to update or change your actual data underlying. And then you have your authentication on that. So if you're doing analytics and you're trying to show your data, this is perfect because this allows you to do all this. So you have your business user maybe, or someone who's building your reports, your data visualizations here, and then you have your developer here who can, using Visualize.js, embed that directly into their application seamlessly. So let's just take a quick look at what is Visualize.js. So Visualize.js is a JavaScript framework that allows developers to quickly and cost-effectively embed those analytic components. So an example of this, and I'll actually go to a demo. I don't want to spend too much time on demos so much as on actual code. But here's a front-end application for an example. So here we have this food delivery service. And so what we wanted to do was we actually create some pretty simple visualizations. And we did this using Jaspersoft Studio, which then you can, of course, those things you build with Studio, you put right into the server. So my first visualization is a brand chart. And so that was embedded into the page using Visualize.js. But what's happening is it's actually controlling another entire report or chart or visualization below it. So then that visualization updates based on what the user wants to see. So what this is really for is to allow the end users of the applications to be able to do analytics, to be able to be empowered to do more than just see what maybe you've put up there statically. So if they wanted to change the chart type, they can do that. And then with the HTML, with JavaScript, you can then, because this is all being done with JavaScript through Visualize.js, you can pass parameters back and forth. So whether it's going into the report or out of the report, it's opened up. It's not like an iframe, obviously, right? So you've actually got the ability to do a lot more with that. Let's look at one other, actually a couple others. So here's an example of your passing. Someone built this visualization in the business team, and you're embedded into the application for them. So what we're looking at here is you're actually using the visualization that's been put out there with the Jasper Report server, and it's controlling what's in the application. So you do that with Visualize.js. I'm going to show you some code in a minute here. Another use case would be, say an end user embedded the mapping into their application. So then you have the power to pass the parameters from this department that's updated by city, and then the end user could just say, okay, I want the lowest price for that particular. So just that fast, they've selected their city, they've selected their department, and then they've got the pricing that they want. So the power of this is that you give the end user a lot of ability to control these things. And then the nice thing with Visualize.js is that the exporting features are built in. So you don't have to go out and rebuild that or construct that. That's there, and it's simplistic code for doing that. So with that kind of quick demo, and I can demo more later as well. You guys can come to the booth. There's a lot more I could show you on the server. I'll just go into that really fast here. I want to show you an example of, so this isn't Studio. So Studio, you would maybe be doing more finite, detailed things. But this is actually our ad hoc editor. So if you need to pull a chart in or remove a chart, say I want to delete this chart, pull this one up, then we're going to save this thing, save that dashboard. And then we'll go back to the application. And you notice here I'm logging in because this is based on authentication. So depending on who I log in as, that's going to change what you could see at the data level. Let me do that again. Okay, so the first visualization that I want to show you, so here's the one that we just updated. So just that fast, you could go in and update on the back end, and it would be there within the actual application. An example of a dashboard that has a lot of built-in features. So if you didn't have any, actually any programming experience, you could go in and create this dashboard in the actual Jasper report server. So that dashboard could control various parameter passing. And so here we have a case where one dashlet affects the other. But then if you did want to have this interact more with your actual application, you as the developer with JavaScript could also set it up so that you were updating things from the page itself. So now that's passing a parameter in here and changing the actual department or the group. So let's jump into the presentation and some of the code. That's really what I want to show you guys right now. Like I said, I can always do more demoing at the booth later. Okay, so what you really have going on here is you have to think of this in kind of a new way. So if you're using D3 or something like that, I've had questions around D3. Again, you're getting the visualization. Maybe you're using JSON with that. But with this, you're really able to connect to whatever data sources. So TIBCO Jaspersoft's Jasper Report Server is what the central hub or location or engine that's running all of this. So with that, you're going to have, let me actually go into the presentation. That might be helpful. So with that, you're going to have, your analytics, you're going to have your interactive reporting, and you're going to have your data visualizations that are built in. You can also pull data visualizations in from other things like D3 as well if you needed to. So here's an example of some code, very simple, right? You're just pulling in the Visualize.js API here. And then here I have a couple examples I'm going to show you, right? So you might have an authentication bit of JavaScript. You may have a dashboard bit of JavaScript going on. And then here's your container for holding if you were just doing one visualization or report. So this is really simple at this point. So let's look at an authentication example. So here what's going on is you've got Visualize is being called here in the JavaScript. And what's nice about this is that all of your authentication is being done with the Jasper Report server. So anyone could be doing that on the back end. And then what this allows you to do is it allows you to set up token. Here's a simple plain text, but you could be doing token authentication. We do that a lot. You also have your organization. So you have multi-tenancy built into the Jasper Report server. So if you're really trying to use a true business case with this or any type of organization, you're going to have different users are going to have different needs to connect to that data and different rights at the data level. So that allows you to do that. You could also add things like time zones and whatnot in here. And then where the action occurs is at function V. So that V is the object you're pulling in from the Visualize.js API that we called earlier. And that really is saying, okay, in this particular case, and you could do this a couple different ways, but in this particular case, you're creating a variable called report, and then you're connecting that object there. So now you can add things to V report. Okay, so you might have particular, in this case, I remember our container, so you just say, okay, this one report, I want to embed it in that container. So this is a really simple use case, but you may have another place where you want to say, here we have a hard-coded parameter, right? But you don't have to hard-code it. I mean, you could do whatever you want to pass that parameter into the code. So this allows your application to open up and allows you a lot more creative ability in terms of building something out in the application. Of course, all of our error functioning is there as well and built in from the start. Okay, now here's an example a little different. This is dashboarding. and you're embedding a dashboard. So basically, you have maybe several visualizations of reports that it didn't even have to be a developer that built that out. It could have been anyone that used the Jasper report server. So Visualize says, okay, same stuff, right? Authentication. In this particular case, I'm saying let's connect V directly and pass that directly, and then that's being passed to the dashboard. So it's a little different, but very similar way. So there's different ways you can go about passing that with V. So now let's talk about if you were doing more with parameters, right? So if you had, say, some of the demos you guys may have seen that I was doing earlier, I showed you a little bit just now, shows several visualizations interacting with each other. So you're going to have maybe a master report and a slave report, and they're controlling each other. You could also have the application, the web application, directly controlling the one report. It doesn't have to be multiple reports, but it's up to you how you want to set that up. So what's happening here is you're saying basically you're creating, you're initializing that report, and this initialize report half, so here we have that. So we're going to come back to that. But really at this point what you're doing is you're trying to get it started. So you're rendering that report, and you're doing it dynamically, so the URI is being pulled in as a resource versus being hard-coded or static. So you have that. Obviously that makes sense that you could do that. And then in the end, the triggering event is it's just saying, okay, so now if it's available, that event click function is now once it hears something back from that, it's going to be able to run that event, and it knows to pass the link. So once you see the other half of the code, this will make more sense. But this is what happens is that brand is updated. So this is the product. It would be the master, and then it updates the the master would be the brand, and the products would be the slave report. So it's basically saying let the master report pass that parameter and brand name over into, and so when we go over here now, we can see that's exactly what happens, right? It updates that brand and passes it in. And so you can do a lot of things to, like, if you needed to pass, like, say, the brand name into the actual HTML, you could add that there, or if you wanted to have it so it just updated the visualization, you could have that there. But ultimately, what you're going to choose between is, do I want to have this to be really detailed? Do I need my visualizations to be finite and very detailed? You would use Studio, right? Because Studio, our product, allows you to create reports, very particular coloring, spacing, everything you need in terms of very custom. If you decide, okay, I just want to do this maybe internally or just something very simple with dashboarding, you don't have to use Studio. You could just simply do that with the actual server itself and do the analytics directly on the server. In fact, that's what a lot of people do. They use the analytics directly on the server. And so what I wanted to point out here, and the reason I mentioned that, is that in this case, you need to use Studio. Because Studio you've set that in Studio that brand is the parameter in that visualization that updates. So that's how it knows, because parameter brand is set in Studio. One other piece of code that I want to show you, and I'll show you a fiddle of this and actually a couple others. But what this really is saying is you've got end users that are going through these visualizations, and what we're trying to do with Visualize.js, what Jaspersoft is trying to do as much as possible is if you just have a static visualization like what we commonly do as developers, it doesn't allow the end user really a lot of power to do the analytics. So the whole point here is that they may have made a change, and they click on the button Save, and it's going to save that particular set. So an example would be they change a chart type, they can save that so that it's now in the server, it's permanent, but it's not something that would be hard to fix or change later. Another example would be with reporting. They might change the filtering, any number of things. They can save that. And so what this allows them to do is to say that report, save, and really everything else is very similar, right? You've got your same authentication. And in fact, let me go right now to that fiddle if I have it up here. Right, so here it is. So in this case, let's just quickly change the chart type. This has been sitting for some time, so we'll just refresh it. So what it's doing right now is it's pulling in that particular report, and then it allows that person to change it there. I'll save it. So now if we refresh, and even if we went to the server right now, you'd see that it's that particular view now. And that's one example. There's several others as well of ways you can do that. So let me kind of move over to the server now to get you more look at the back end. Okay, so the server, there's a couple things you should know about the server. So first of all, your data resides where you want it to reside. It doesn't have to reside on our server. That's not the way it works. So the server is something you either install on you could do it on your local system, right? So you go to jaspersoft.com, get a 30-day download, install it on your system, start playing with it locally. That's possible to do that. You could also go to Amazon, and if you put in like business analytics into Amazon, we're going to be the first one that comes up there. So for less than $1 an hour, you could start to play with this and get a feel for it before you scale it out. So if you needed to expand your bandwidth, you could, obviously. But the nice thing about that is that you can start playing with this today, really at very low cost. So you've got your data sources. You've got your ad hoc views. So ad hoc is just basically saying, if I wanted to go into one of these ones here, let's just pull up one. Actually, but rather than doing that, I'm going to go into a dashboard, because ad hoc is in the dashboard as well. So let's pull up an expense metrics dashboard. So again, this is not Studio, so it's not as finite, but what you can do is you have all your different chart types. So if I pulled in another chart here, and then I can select from whatever data source I already have set up, or domain I have set up. Domain meaning your metadata layer, so data on the data, so you don't have to change your underlying data sources. So here you have maybe your inventory, maybe you pull in, say, city or state, and then we're going to pull up maybe something like units ordered. Change our chart type. Let's pull in a different chart type. So yeah, this isn't necessarily the best example, but in other words, you can now save that dashlet. And that's in there now. And so you can do these things very quickly. You can build out a dashboard very quickly with ad hoc. And then what that allows you to do is you can scale everything here very fast. You can add your filters. So if you need to add a particular filter, say if you want to have one dashlet control another dashlet, that can be done right here, so you don't have to actually code that. What Visualize.js allows that you wouldn't be able to do just here is it opens up that entire workspace. So you're not embedding as an iframe, obviously, right? You're embedding it with JavaScript, and so it allows you to have more creativity. You can do more in terms of showing off how things are interacting with each other, how the page is interacting. So it's more about actionable data. So a lot of times when we think about people looking at data, they're just kind of seeing this static view of whatever it is that they're looking at. Maybe you've done it created something with D3, and it doesn't matter what they may change certain things to change that particular view, but what they actually in the end need to do is maybe select something in that visualization that powers the entire website. So what this allows you to do now is it allows you to open up the entire website. Visualize.js can now control, whether it be the reporting, the data visualizations, whatever it is you're working with, can control the menus in the site, can control whatever's happening in the site. It's really up to you, because you now are using Visualize.js, which is JavaScript and API. So, so at this point, let's open it up to questions. I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking. Just another thought, I'm going to pull up where you can find more information. And then also, I want to make you all aware of the fact that right now, we're at kind of a pivotal point with Visualize.js, and that we're trying to figure out what the best pricing model is for developers in particular. So the timing of this is perfect, this event, because we really are trying to garnish feedback from the developers as to how you want to ultimately consume this. And so right now we're doing the cloud, right? You can go to the cloud and do that for a certain price, but some people are finding that API calls do make sense. Do we want to do API calls, or do we want to do a license model? So we're going to be sending out a survey, so feel free to come to the, we can share more with that and leave me your information. We'll get you that, so you can give us feedback, because we could really use that at this time. TIBCO is several thousand employees. Jaspersoft is right here in Potrero Hill. We've got about somewhere around 120, 130, I believe, right now on our team. And what we really are focused on with Jaspersoft is reporting, embedding analytics into your web framework, and that's really our main thrust right now. Let me pull up a little information. Yeah, I want you guys to be able to see, where you can find more info. So yeah, just simply go to Jaspersoft.com, and you can just put in Visualize.js, and you'll find we've actually got 15 years behind us with an open source community. So Visualize.js is not open source in the sense that you could just go start using it without the actual Jasper report server, but you can start using certain versions of the Jasper report in terms of Jaspersoft doing certain things with reporting is open source. And especially our community has grown strong because we've been doing this for so long. So when you go to this, you'll actually be transported to the community site, and you'll be able to see a lot of what we're doing there, and we're actually enhancing that a lot right now. So feel free to reach out to me directly as well, especially if you have questions around the pricing, or you have questions around what kind of opportunities really reside with Visualize.js. I really only kind of just started to touch on some of the things you could do. So yeah, again, let's open it up to questions. I'd love to hear from you guys, what you guys are thinking right now. Great question, yeah. So the question was, how responsive are these charts, especially, so we do have Jaspersoft Mobile, which I also work with right now. So we have a mobile application, you can consume the reports, and we also have SDKs for using that in your applications. With that being said, let me show you an actual, which I did not do, an actual example of how this scales. So I'll just use this one here for an example, I guess. But it's very scalable. I mean, obviously, if you have a report, you have to say, you need to say the height, right? But in terms of like the visualizations, whether it be built in Jasper Report Studio or whether it's being built on the server, it's going to scale nicely to whatever you're building. How many data points? Like how far can you go with this? Yeah. So this was built with big data in mind, and so this is as far as the upper tier. I mean, what the server was built with the thought of we're going to get thrown a lot of data, and so there is, as of now, I don't know of any. There's the limitation. We haven't yet. We actually haven't even come near it. In fact, that's one of our things right now is we really want to get more people on board using bigger and bigger data, because the capabilities there are huge. And the performance is, we've built the performance for that. So, yeah, great question. Yeah, no, that's a very good question. That's one of the things I really want to make sure everybody understands. So you could go to jaspersoft.com and download the 30-day trial, install it on your local system. You don't even have to be on the web, and start doing this. And for that matter, if you were to purchase the product using Visualize.js, you are at that point, you're connecting to your data sources. So we're exploring like whether people, and that's a great thing for you guys to give us feedback on, right? We're trying to find out if people want us to be able to start providing more data storage services. As of now, we've stayed clear of that. We've just said, hey, let's provide people the ability, if they want to connect to Cassandra, MongoDB, whatever it is that they're trying to connect to, and it could be obviously multiple data sources coming in from all over. So this is really for, especially if you have a lot of things happening with your data, this is really nice because it allows you to really simplify, especially with metadata layers. It really gives you a way to kind of not have to mess with the underlying data. So back to your question about the cloud, though, the cloud is, again, you're not storing your data with us on the cloud. The cloud simply allows to have that Jasper Report server with Amazon, and so if you go there and you put in business analytics in Amazon, it's going to come up, and you're going to be able to basically just get bandwidth on their server, So you're using their server now versus maybe you have your own web server or you're doing it locally on your system. And the pricing there is really nice if you're just starting out with it because it's less than $1 an hour to just start using it. So if you're just testing it out, you say, okay, I'm done, I'll just turn it off and it's not running, then you're not having to pay for that. Yeah. So basically, how often are you connecting to the data source? So like how live is it? Is that kind of what you're, okay, great question. So this is not true live in terms of like if you were to set this up and then you expect to like see things coming in every second. So the question of live, that's like, okay, so what is live? Is that every minute? Is that every 30 seconds? So there are things you could do to definitely to hack in and start to do that for certain, but as of right now, live streaming is not supported, and we're working hard to look at supporting that. So that's good feedback. If there's those of you who are thinking like, this is what I really like to have, but I really want the live, live streaming, that's really important to me, like let me know that because that's a big part of what we're developing right now. We've got a sizable team here in the US and outside of the US that's working on this right now, so. Right now, I actually don't know the answer to that question, how often, because it's actually not like a set thing. It's not like you're just connecting this often. It's like, you actually have to set it to like refresh at the rate that you want. Yeah, but it's still not going to be, even if you set it to refresh at the rate that you want, it's still not going to be able to refresh at like per second or like what some people consider to be live stream, yeah. Yep. I kind of briefly mentioned, I didn't go into it. So we do have a custom visualization component that we finished. And so you could connect to like D3, or you could connect to whatever it is that you're trying to do like that. Is that what you're referring to in terms of? Right. So yeah, basically what he's saying is they have a data aggregator system already in place, and they want to be able to start to use that with a Jasper report server. So we have data connectors that are more open-ended, so maybe it requires just a little more work, but yeah, if you have a data source, you can connect to that data source however you set that up in your location. So that's what we've really tried to focus on, is to not like limit where you can connect that to. We kept that. And so the Jasper report server is Java-based. Obviously, we're embedding with JavaScript, but yeah, so it's Java-based, and so we've really worked hard to get the connectors in place, and you do have the ability to have custom connectors like that. Yeah. Anything else in the back? Don't want to miss anybody. All right. Well, good. Yeah. Feel free to come by the booth, get more info, see more demo. Actually, there's a lot more I can show you, especially on the Jasper report server. So yeah, come on by, and we're really glad that you guys are here. Thanks.